We're not off to a good start. The subreddit has gone walkabout. G'day mates and fellow adventurers, my name is Mordecai. You know how sometimes an unexpected event just happens and you find that you have to make a few adjustments? Well, in light of the new restrictions that the RPGHorrorStories subreddit has put into place, with mandating that every thread has to be labelled as not safe for work, but for once I'm going to cover a story which wasn't originally marked as being not safe for work, when it really should have been. And I say that not because it's particularly graphic or gory, but because it contains a that guy who is, put simply, disgusting! Which means that I have to ask our more sensitive viewers to leave, but don't fret, I'll be trying to get those few brave people who decide to stay to also leave, before we hit the point of no return. There will be some fair dinkum content in the future that's more suitable for everyone. Now, something that I consider to be extremely important at the table is the topic of consent. In broad terms, this is an agreement between two parties to engage in rather explicit behaviour, the kind of behaviour that can cause people to feel rather queasy and or uncomfortable in the situation. And yes, this is especially true at the table for a tabletop role-playing game. Having consent isn't just an important skill for the table, but also for life in general. So, naturally, you can sometimes run into particularly disturbing individuals known as incels, which get a real kick out of the explicit, and also by showcasing to others just how creepy they can intentionally be. Let's delve into the often terrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Today's story is titled That Guys. That Guys Never Change, and is written by RedMage90. After listening and reading to so many horror stories, I decided it was about time I posted my own, although this post might be a bit on the longer side, as it recounts the story of a that guy that ruined not one, but 3 campaigns in quick succession, more if we count teenage years. I will do my best to recall the story as it has been several years by this point. I also apologise in advance for the grammar, as I am not a native English speaker. The cast of the story includes myself, which is fairly self-explanatory, Gary, the that guy that we knew from high school, Deer, the player who had his birthday game ruined by Gary, Bro, the brother of Deer and overall a bro in real life, and Wolfgirl, a new player who was only relevant in the third story. For context, me and my friends have been playing D&D since high school, when 3.5 was the edition, and continued to play it until we moved to Pathfinder after a terrible one-shot attempt at 4th edition ran by Gary. Gary was a friend back then, when we were all that guys to some degree. Though we broke contact with him for each of our own reasons, I highly suspect it was due to him always hitting on his friend's girlfriend, or how whenever one of us suddenly had a girlfriend, he had a story of the girl wanting to sleep with him to push a breakup. Ugh, that's just disgusting! There's something about having a person act in this particular manner that's just despicable when put politely. Just how bad is it? Well, if you need a cartoonish warlock with a phoenix sitting on his shoulder on YouTube to thoroughly explain why Gary's actions as an incel are disturbing at best, I cannot help you. But I can say, without a doubt, that if you're making everyone at the table uncomfortable, you need to take some accountability, figure out what you're doing wrong, and stop doing that. The way that Gary is behaving here is what I would expect out of a really immature child. Let's resume. However, feel free to take a bet on how many more times I'll be using the Gordon Ramsay clip before the end of the narration. A few years had passed after we had lost contact with each other, and each of us had grown into more functional adults, and learned how not to be a jerk at the table. Deer had remade contact with Gary, however, and had invited him to his birthday hangout to run a Pathfinder game. They asked me if I was cool with that, as I had had a very hard falling out with Gary, and I was fine then. I grew up, got more mature, and hopefully he did too, right? Well, we would find out at the birthday game. And now, Gary runs a birthday game. We made up for Deer's birthday to some TTRPG and hangouts. As we prepare ourselves, Gary explains to us his setting idea for the one-shot, how he used to work as an employee of Paizo, and he had made a setting for them that was grimdark, full of persecution and racism, where if you aren't a human you would need to roleplay as a slave with a handler, but they had to refuse it due to it being too dark for them. Spoilers, we later checked. There are no Paizo officers in our area or even province, and that we would be level 1 and have to deal with high difficulty and realism. We didn't care much. I think we were all starving for some TTRPG action and wanted a game, though we all knew Deer wasn't a fan of playing evil settings, but Gary didn't care about Deer's preferences, at his own birthday. With everything included, we made our characters. Deer went for a human fighter, Bro went for a half-elf rogue, and me, I played a ratfolk alchemist. Hey, if it's grimdark and I can play Skaven, I will play Skaven. We are told we are an Inquisition-style group who came to a village to investigate supernatural occurrences in the area, which at first sounded like a fun idea, but as soon as we start, oh boy. Every single NPC behaves like jerks and gives no information. I mean nothing. Zero. Zilch. Deer tried to be nice to a dwarf that owned the tavern, but it ended up with the dwarf spitting at him for being nice to a slave and how inappropriate it was. The one and only piece of information we get is that the town well strangely dried out, so we set out to investigate. After talking amongst ourselves, we decided Bro's rogue would be going down with a rope and search, and we'll pull him out if things get bad. So down goes the rogue, and as he reaches the bottom he is told the well is dry except for a layer of mud. So the rogue goes to check and... Your leg is stuck in the mud, you can't move. What? Your leg is stuck in the mud and you can't move. Okay, do I get a reflex save? No, your foot is stuck. Okay, I want to try an escape artist check to get out then. Roll. Bro proceeded to roll and had something like 16 on his dice without the bonus, which was pretty good for a level 1. But not good enough. You're stuck, you should have rolled a natural 20. We were all annoyed already, so we decided to help him out, pull the rope and work as a team to get him out of the well, and cue Gary. Okay, you can roll again. Bro rolls with bonus from aid and gets again a respectable number, if I recall around an 18 this time. Gary asked him then to roll a percentage on that, saying, if you roll low, you lose your leg. Bro rolls a 60 on the percentage die. I'm gonna be nice and say you just lose your foot. By the way, there is no one in town to regrow it. Don't even ask. Plus, no one would help a dirty elf. Great! Our first plot hook crippled our rogue permanently. We spent the rest of that game going around trying to find a plot, anything to progress, and we get bored and decide to check the forest. Cue a random encounter with a bear. A rather big bear that he described as not quite a dire bear. We try to fight it, but we can't even hit it, not even with 19s on our dice. I land a few hits with bombs due to a touch attack, but it's clear damage-wise I tickle him at best. At one point, Deer got annoyed and went to check the bear stats. He called out Gary on the encounter, to which he is told, I don't care. I do what I want with my monster, and I'll add stuff to it if I want. And if you look at the monster manual again, I will kick you out. Yeah, Gary was prepared to kick out Deer, out of his own birthday game, at his own house. Then Gary had the bear swipe and two-shot Deer to negative health, killing him outright at that point. I do as all good Skaven do and get the heck out of there. We end the session there, with no one but Gary having had fun. A few drinks and a Munchkin game later, we return home. As I am driving him back to his house, Gary declares something rather weird to me. I love killing players. What? I love killing players. That's the best thing as a DM you can do, to punish morons and kill their little snowflakes. That's not the goal, and you killed Deer's character for his birthday. I don't care. It's my game, and he deserved to die. If it wasn't the bear, I would have had the dwarf sell him out to your higher-up to get him executed for being nice to a slave.
Disgusting!
Let's take a break from the story for a moment. Firstly, I do love the idea of having a more gritty, realistic game to set it apart from a more regular game. Having healing be restrictive, wounds needing proper resources other than time and food to restore, or having dark and horror elements such as terrifying monsters, and you have something that can create a truly memorable experience. It's therefore unfortunate that Gary made several critical mistakes. The first being that assuming grimdark meant everyone was a super edgy jerklord, written up in a teenager's angst-inspired story. He also made the mistake of having players face severe consequences for no real reason. And to top it all off, he openly admitted that he enjoys killing players, not their characters. And all of this for a game being ran for someone on their birthday. To put it simply, grimdark is not supposed to mean whatever it is that Gary thinks it does. And the result of his version of grimdark was a clear disaster. Let's resume the story to see what else happens as a result of Gary's actions. The rest of the ride was awkward, where he kept trying to justify himself on how that was a rare encounter he rolled randomly, and that he didn't mean to TPK us, and that mud thing? It was a rare, unique, invisible slime that attacked Bro, with no roll, at level 1. I wasn't a part of the second campaign of note, but it was told his greatest hits included arguing for several minutes, if not for several hours, with GM's overall rules and pausing when he didn't get his way, or trying to say, I worked for Paizo, so I know the rules best. Threatening a player who played a druid to kick him out for looking up his own wild shape's form stats in the book, spawning 3 purple worms plus a bandit group as an encounter on a group of 3 level 7s, amongst many other things. That and the birthday game reminded me why we stopped letting Gary GM. The way every encounter was basically set up to think exactly like me to the very details, or I shut down every single attempt at everything. And now time for Gary's seafaring antics. Sometime later I decided to pick up my old DM mantle and run a game online for them again. We were low on players in our area, so I reluctantly accepted Gary back in, thinking maybe, just maybe, the birthday antics were due to alcohol. I was wrong. We start the campaign with the premise being a maiden voyage of a new ship, think something like a steamboat, that was heading to a newly emerged island that every faction on board wanted a piece of for themselves. For that game I invited an old friend from my live action roleplay days in. We'll call her Wolf Girl. She had a thing for those. We each started by making characters in a one-on-one session, and the red flags started right there. I want to play an old witch, like a creepy witch of the woods that eats children. I've got no issue with witches, but I've got a strict no evil rule. Can you rework that concept a bit? Okay, fine, she won't be evil. She's just insane because of isolation, and doesn't understand social norms. Yeah, nah, sorry dude. Cannibalism is always evil. Neutral at best, but even then. Fine, she won't eat people, but I want her to be crazy. Well, as long as you don't be too disruptive, I don't mind having quirky characters. By the way, I heard you got a new player from Bro, and that it's a girl. Oh, you mean Wolf Girl? Yeah, she'll be playing a ranger. Her character's already made. What's her full name? Why should it matter? I want to check her social media, see what she looks like. What the heck, dude? That's creepy. Give me her name. Yeah, no, it's her private information. She'll give it to you if she wants to. Oh, come on, just give me her name. I'm gonna learn it anyway, so what does it change? He later used my social media to just find her name amongst my Facebook friends. She had a rather unique first name for her, which made it easier for the creep to find her. The first game went alright, even if Gary was loud and obnoxious and constantly stuck to Wolfgirl's character. After a Sahagin and pirate attack, the group found a prisoner that, after Bro spoke to the Hell Knights, managed to get the right to interrogate on the matter. Cue the quote chaotic good unquote witch of Gary, slicing the prisoner's finger, eating it in front of him, and then wrapping a noose around the guy's neck to start hanging him. The party was shocked, and I am getting really peeved off at that. I call him out on that, but this nonsense isn't anywhere close to chaotic good action-wise, and I told him already I didn't want evil characters in the game. Guess what his excuse was? I'm only pretending to hang him, that's not evil. Like, dude, you chopped off a finger, ate it, and then pretended to hang the guy. That's both torture and psychological torture on a prisoner who was at worst rude to you guys. Switch your alignment to chaotic neutral at the very least. Gary argued for a while about how his actions were not evil and totally justified before just whining and accepting the alignment change. After the second session, I got a Discord ping from Wolfgirl, who wanted to talk. Hey, can we talk about Gary's behavior? Yeah, I figured. What's up? Yeah, he won't leave me alone when we play. He keeps bothering me in private chats, and is getting really creepy. He even tracked down my social media to compliment my picture and stuff. Really? Yeah, I don't feel comfortable playing with someone like that. Not to add that freaky torture scene and all the arguing he caused at the table. Alright, I'm gonna have a talk with him, give him a warning, and if he doesn't change, he's done. And I had that talk that very same night. Hey dude, I need to talk to you. Yo, what about? I had a complaint about you from a player at the table about your behavior, and I decided I needed to have a talk with you. Who did the complaining? It doesn't matter. What matters is that there was a complaint, and I have to take it seriously. Who did the complaining? It was Wolfgirl, wasn't it? I bet it was her. I don't care. Your behavior has been atrocious, and if you don't turn it down and I get a second complaint, you're out. Fine. I just did what my character would do, and if I can't do that, I will make a new character. Fine, but this time make a character that will work with the group, please. Fine. Oh my. It's what my character would do. And also failing to take responsibility for how his actions, both in-game and out-of-game, are affecting the other players. And before we resume the story, we're rapidly approaching the section that convinced me that this story was not safe for work. So I'm gonna have to say goodbye to some more people. Don't worry, here's a timestamp to the end of the video and my afterthoughts in case you want to skip to the end. And with that, oh my. And so, Gary made a dwarf cleric, and his witch was executed by the witch hunters on board. I'll be blunt, the group knew there were Hell Knights on board who had witch hunters amongst their number, and Gary's witch had spammed their hex on everything, and everyone, saying, "It's 100% undetectable supernatural ability, and nobody can track it back to me." Yeah, like the Hell Knights wouldn't know a sign of a hex spell and not suspect the crazy old cannibal woman. As soon as Gary's dwarf met Wolfgirl's character, he went full-on nice guy, kissing a hand, going, "Milady," and everything you can imagine there. Group-wide discomfort. After the prisoner got calmed down and patched up, Bro managed to get information out of him that someone on board was an agent of a demon-worshipping country, but basically sold off the ship crew in order to have full claim on the island. So the group decides to try and find the spy, and one of their first ideas being to check out on the elven actor that played on one of the plays on board, who had suddenly gone missing during the initial attack. They debated how to approach it, but as they spoke, the ranger got tired of waiting, and went ahead to talk to the actor. "I want to go and talk to that guy." This was followed by Gary shouting out of character, "Get into a bed with him!" which resulted in group-wide silence and discomfort. What the heck, dude? At this point, Gary goes on one of the most horrifically envisionable rants about how that's what females do, get information out of interpersonal interactions. In a phrase,
disgusting!
Which is why you're getting the censored version of Gary's complete and utter nonsense. Moving on. We all ignored Gary, and I went on with Wolf Girl on her scene where she tried to get information from the guy. She didn't get that much information due to some not so great rolls, but the effort was there. At the end of the game, I approached the others about this and asked directly, since I had put the guy on the watch list and I felt he had definitely not improved, whether the others also thought he had not improved. They agreed with me, so I went to talk to him again. And this is another point where I have to prompt any remaining viewers to seriously consider skipping ahead. Here is a timestamp for those of you who do want to stick around while skipping the part that caused me to delay narrating this particular story by an entire 12 months. Yes, we are going into full discomfort territory. Here we go. Hey, dude, I had another complaint about you. Oh, come on, it's the princess again, huh? Well, she can go screw herself. I've been kissing her rear end the entire game. I don't care who it is. What you said and did bothered everyone and was completely unacceptable. It's cause you want to passionately hug her in a bed, right? That's why you take her side, cause you want her to go with you, so you go against me. What? Dude, I'm just doing what any GM should do and take complaints seriously. What the heck is with that accusation? Yeah, that's what they said. They told me you wanted her and you would take her side. You're just peeved because I'm more male than you. Dude, she's a friend. You've been acting like a problem player, and that's that. I'd be having the exact same talk with you if those complaints came from anyone else. You piece of work. You want to get her into a bed with you. That's why you want me out. Well, you're clearly not willing to change, and you persuaded yourself of whatever story you had in mind. This is, goodbye then. Screw you and screw your nonsense.
Disgusting!
And with that, I booted him from the game. Later on, I learned he had been bothering all of the players outside of the game about various stuff, and had continuously harassed Wolf Girl during the game, until he had been completely blocked. I didn't mention a few other things like his constant arguing of rules to try and bend stuff to give himself advantage, or bring down other players, and constant cutting out other players and shouting, but if I did, you'd have to deal with a full-on essay, plus several years of time, so I just brought up what I consider to be the main acts of Gary. I still play with that group of friends, but we moved to 5th edition relatively recently. We didn't have a Bat Guy issue ever again after removing Gary, and we learned that some people just never change from high school. In summary, that guy from high school gets re-invited to our games, proceeds to ruin a player's birthday party game, and harasses a woman in a game I run before getting the boot permanently from our lives. And that's where the story ends. Bloody oath, my earlier comment about Gary being the completely immature child who never really grew up was accurate. The sheer amount of projecting themselves onto other people, the constant me versus the other players mentality that extends to wanting to kill the players, and the it's what my character would do, on top of being extremely creepy. Moreover, Gary's rather explicit harassment towards women is the exact kind of behaviour that should have at least landed him in a psychiatric's office to diagnose exactly what is wrong with him. But the truth is, we may never really know why he and others like him firmly believe in the ideologies of incels, and that is most likely for the best. My understanding, however, is that the vast majority of the time, Incels are less interested in trying to get a partner for life, and more interested in showcasing how they perceive the supremacy of their particular gender over everything else, and that it somehow justifies them acting as creeps. It's one of the most walkabout, wobbly, disgusting, and just plain uncomfortable mindsets to be around. I don't know what Gary's upbringing was like, but does it really matter when Gary has made the choice to behave in a completely inappropriate and walkabout manner? I'd say no. Even if there was a perfectly valid reason for him to have started out like that, it doesn't excuse continuing to behave this way, and it certainly doesn't justify him not improving at all. It's still his choice to be a complete jerklord. You may have also noticed how Gary will behave in a seemingly specific manner before turning around and contradicting himself. You remember that rare, unique, invisible slime that was hiding in the mud when he DM'd the birthday game? Or how he had the random encounter dire bear that outclassed all dire bears? If he was always going to break out those specific encounters regardless of how the dice rolled, what he should have done was completely break the illusion, and go full child mode with adding laser cannons to his pet. It was already hiding behind a quote, perfect invincibility shield, unquote. It's like Gary had to embody the irony behind saying the phrases, I didn't mean to TPK, and I love killing players. This firmly is one of those it's one of the other scenarios, and I'm pretty sure that Gary believes in the latter whilst using Performer as a smokescreen. Now, this would be the point in the Afterthoughts where I make a suggestion about how to handle this kind of scenario if it ever crops up in games, except that OP has already written up a really solid plan for this kind of walkabout problem, so let's summarize and add to it. The first step should be to establish how your other players are feeling about the incel's creepy and or possibly psychotic behaviour. From there, you can then try to talk to the problem player, either as a group confronting him, which is the preferable option in my opinion, or as an individual whilst keeping the individuals involved anonymous. The advantage of doing it as a group is that it demonstrates that it isn't just one player who was made uncomfortable, it's everyone at the table. And worst case scenario, you just permanently boot the player out of the game with that reasoning. And with that, I feel like I need to wash my mouth out with soap. Thank you for watching the video. If you like my content and want to see more or wish to support the channel, please hit the subscribe button and maybe leave the video a like. It's free to do, and every bit of support is highly appreciated. Also, if you wish to leave a comment and can't think of anything to write, let me know you've reached the end of the video by commenting, TTRPGs are meant to be at least comfortable for everyone. Again, thank you for watching, and I shall see you all next time.